Thank you for joining IAB There.
Hi, I'm Orchid Richardson, Senior Vice President of the Programmatic Data Center, and welcome this afternoon to IAB There, our daily live stream in which we connect the digital advertising ecosystem. Today's episode is sponsored by Verizon Media, so I want to say thank you to them. And I also am super excited about today's episode because I get to sit down and talk with Varun Bhagwan, Vice President, Product and Engineering of Ads Data for Verizon Media. Today, we'll have an in-depth conversation where we'll learn how advertisers and publishers can identify new paths to success by taking a consumer-first approach to identity in today's changing industry landscape. Varun is an executive with over 20 years of experience leading numerous R&D projects from inception to delivery. He's also invented or co-invented roughly 50 patents. He holds a number of awards, including Yahoo Master Inventor Award. He's received the top honor from Verizon, which is the Verizon Credo Award. He's authored more than 15 different publications in top tier conferences and journals. He is a frequent speaker. You've probably seen him at CES, IAB ALM, Cannes Lions, and he actually sits on the board of the IAB Tech Lab. Probably one of his greatest accomplishments is his 3-year-old son, who he has been hanging out a lot with during the pandemic. So Varun, welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Orchid. Great to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here because we get to actually continue a conversation that we had at IAB ALM just a couple of weeks ago, where we sat down and talked about everything that's happening in first-party data, the state of data, and all of that. So thank you for indulging me so we can continue that conversation. If you don't mind, I'd like to actually open up with talking about state of data. So as you know, and most of our audience is probably aware, is that state of data is a report that we released early in the month. And the big key takeaway from that report was how advertisers and publishers may not be giving themselves enough time to adapt to identity and consumer privacy changes that are ahead within the industry. So everything that's happening around the cookie, everything that's happening around Apple iOS 14. From your perspective, do you think the industry is ready?
Well, we've all faced a ton of challenges over the past year as people, through our personal lives, through our work lives, not just as like advertisers or publishers or whatever, right? Right. And frankly, we're only now starting to a little bit get back on our feet. There's light at the end of the COVID tunnel. And now we're having to navigate these ongoing and upcoming identity and consumer privacy changes and headwinds as an industry. And it feels like if you just look at the past couple of weeks or so, every day there's a blog post or some announcement that changes the rules just a little bit to keep things interesting. So all of this is a lot, right? Like everyone is dealing with a crap ton of stuff that's going on. Now, when we look back only from last week or so at the IAB State of Data report findings, and frankly, some other research as well to gauge the readiness of advertisers, there is a fair bit of concern, right? We are not seeing a lot of urgency from advertisers to either adapt or change to ensure that their businesses are ready for a cookieless world, and frankly, an increasingly privacy-centric world. Now, not being ready at this pivotal time will obviously significantly impact publishers and advertisers, but also consumers, and dare I say, our economy and the communities around us, right? So the stakes from that standpoint are very, very high. Now, my hope is that this report, and frankly, all of the discussions, the panels, the presentations, et cetera, at the ALM, actually serve as a call to action to the industry, and that we come together aggressively with a sense of urgency to address these changes when it comes to identity and consumer privacy across the world. Some look at 2021 and beyond as an impending identity crisis. It's all going to crash and burn. We actually see perhaps a potential for an identity revolution, one that's rooted in direct connections with real people.
Wow. Yeah, that's actually very interesting. Could you explore Verizon's media approach around how they're helping advertisers and publishers prepare?
Yeah. So, while the stakes are very high, we are electing to look at the entire landscape as less like an apocalypse of some sort, but again, more like an opportunity for industry to reinvent itself to some degree. And we're taking an omni-channel and a full funnel approach here. First, we think of ourselves as a community garden. We welcome others into our garden. We work with the haves and the have-nots when it comes to first-party data. And we're mindful of the fact that a portion of supply will have addressability in the future, but perhaps a larger portion will not have addressability or will be identity-less in the future. So the solutions that we are coming up with for advertisers and publishers address both of these scenarios at scale to achieve the best outcomes for advertisers, publishers, and consumers. Second, we are actually working with your team and the IAB and other partners to solve current challenges around identity in ways that put the consumer first. Third, and this is very specific to addressability, we have actually unveiled our identity solution that we also discussed briefly at last week's ALM, the Verizon Media Connect ID. It's a persistent identifier built on top of our identity graph and from a people-first lens. It works today. In fact, internally, we've been using our ID graph this way for years. And it's designed to support advertisers, publishers, and consumers in a cookieless world. And Connect ID does what it says. It helps connect advertisers with publishers, both our own and operated, as well as third-party publishers, to give consumers ad relevancy and personalization in ways that they deserve. We then connect this engagement with measurement and attribution for folks to really be able to measure their return on ad spend, et cetera. And the reason, by the way, we are able to do this is because we're in a very unique position within the third-party ecosystem. We actually are a publisher ourselves. We publish and share trusted content. We're a provider of key consumer utilities, and we have strong people-first relationships. Over 900 million people globally engage with us every month. On top of that, we have diversity of data at scale, more than 200 billion signals that we are able to see on a daily basis, including omni-channel, cross-screen channels, mobile apps, search, owned and operated sites, email, finance, and more. And all of these allow us to understand our users better and build the right type of profiles that allow us to serve advertisers and publishers better. And we bring it all together thanks to our full stack solution. We have a DSP and we have an SSP, and that allows for a single user match pool across demand and supply for better transparency, better transactions, better audience insights, without requiring any third-party integrations for us to get going in this space. And finally, I want to say this, right? Like it all starts and ends with the consumer. We have the direct connection with the consumers. We can offer them transparency, but also control over how their data is getting used within and across the ecosystem. So from that standpoint, we see this as a win-win-win across the board.
Yeah, that's important. I want to actually pick up on that theme. When we were on the ALM panel together a couple of weeks, you also talked about the direct relationship with the consumer and how that's really important. Can you tell us a little bit about Verizon Media's approach to that consumer first approach that you guys talk about frequently?
Yes, Verizon Media itself is a publisher, right? And we also power other publishers. So we really understand the nuances of being connected to the consumer at a very deep level. And from our standpoint, a people-first approach means putting the user front and center of what we do and why we do it. So it also means reclaiming the narrative to some degree on issues related to privacy and educating consumers on data in very simple human terms. And it's not just Verizon Media. I think collectively, we all need to do this as an industry. That's the only way we survive and thrive in the upcoming world. We also need to remember that consent is gained, and it's gained through a value exchange. But not just a value exchange, but also by developing trust and maintaining that trust. If we don't do that, we won't see the success that we believe we can. Now, it seems simple, but anytime, anywhere we need to collect user data or share user data, we must do so in a very respectful way, in a transparent way. And if we don't, And by the way, there are enough examples over the past few years where the industry has done a very poor job on that front. But
Right.
when we don't do that, it ends up hurting the entire industry, as we have seen. So it's really up to us to make sure we do right by consumers by making them front and center of everything that we do in terms of our strategy, in terms of the products, in terms of how we engage with them in any direct way.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I always see, even when we're having our internal conversations with Verizon, you guys are participating IB Tech Lab board, you definitely take that people first, consumer first approach to everything that's going on in the industry. So it's great to hear such a company like Verizon leading that kind of conversation with even the products that you've developed and all that's happening with Connect IB. So awesome work there. Let's shift a little bit to talk about what happened just earlier this month with Google and all the changes that they have made, their big press statement. I'd love to get your perspective on how that's going to impact Verizon's media approach to privacy, if it does at all, on a go-forward basis.
Yeah, that's a great question. And, the fact that it happened very recently and has had a lot of implications, both at discussed at ALM and even in some news beyond, tells us the gravity of how big a change it was and how big of an announcement it was from Google's side. And yeah, if you have been living under a rock somewhere and you have no idea what happened, Google basically confirmed that they have no plans to adopt any universal ID or any open source ID solution. And with it, in the same announcement, they denounced the long-term sustainability or viability of alternative third-party ID solutions that were not based on direct first-party consumer relationships. And in our opinion, based on the reading of that, we believe this includes things like Unified ID 2.0 and other ID solutions that may not have any direct consumer connection. In fact, just literally earlier today, they announced and confirmed explicitly that they will not adopt UID 2.0. Instead, Google has confirmed that they will continue to partner and work with those that have first-party consumer relationships. And as Verizon Media, we value our direct consumer relationships and are very happy to be on this side of the decision. Now, that being said, as I mentioned before, we think of ourselves as a community garden as opposed to a walled garden. So that's why our solutions, grounded as they are in our people-first approach, they work with those that have first-party data, but also work with those that don't have first-party data.
Can you give us a live example of that community garden approach? I think that would be helpful for the audience to kind of see it, how it works in real time.
Absolutely. So anytime our partners, be it advertisers or publishers that have their own first-party data, when they want to work with us, we include them into the fold. We leverage Connect ID to connect the users that they know on the advertiser side to the users that the publishers know on the supply side. And through that connectivity, we build this community garden and we allow for not just the targeting of individuals for relevant and personalized ads, but also for better measurement on return on ad spend by giving our advertising partners the same identifiers that they want to use internally to be able to do better attribution and measurement at scale across all of the channels and all of the partners they spend with. So we don't take the approach of, oh, we will grade our own homework and let you know how amazing we are at what we do. We will let others do that you want to work with. So that's the aspect of community garden that we are taking when it comes to identity and ensuring that we can do all of the things that we have been able to do in terms of just targeting, but also frequency capping, measurement, attribution, and all of the things that marketers truly care about within the ecosystem.
Yeah, it sounds like it gives advertisers some true transparency into what's going on and how their campaigns are working. So that's awesome.
Exactly right.
Yeah. I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
No. I was just agreeing with you. That's exactly right.
Yeah. It seems like it's as an advertiser, I think I would love that just because it gives me insight into how my campaigns are working. I really get an understanding of what what publishers work best for my brand. So that's an awesome way of seeing that. I'd love to hear if we just take a moment just to talk about what's next for Verizon Media, what's next for you guys as we think about the next 18 months or so?
Yeah, first, we are actually seeing pretty good success in some of the things that we are doing already. And even though at the outset, I mentioned that, yes, we need to have a sense of urgency in the market, we clearly also see that some in the industry actually get it. And they're starting to make the right moves to make things happen. Specifically, one of the things that we're seeing is when advertisers are integrated directly with Connect ID because of lower latency and better performance, essentially they don't have to go through all the hops they would otherwise have to go to. And the ID join itself is hyper accurate because it's very deterministic. We are able to actually show relevant ads to consumers and give them a better experience while driving up the return on ad spend. Now, when it comes to adoption, we actually have more than 400 advertisers and data partners that are uploading first-party data, leveraging audience segments powered by our logged-in users and consented data. In fact, Connect ID-enabled products are already driving hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue today. And,
Wow.
Connect ID, the moniker I have is, it works today at scale, it's built for tomorrow, no cookies required. Right? So while these numbers are good, when you ask me how things will be over the next 18 months or so, I think there are many, many, many more of you, yes, you in the audience, advertisers, publishers, agencies, you have not future-proofed your business. We are looking for others to come join our community garden and de-risk your respective businesses through these rapidly changing times. Chrome doing away with third-party cookies, Apple's announcements, some of the other regulatory changes that we are seeing, this won't be the end of it. We're only going to see this go on for longer in different ways. And you want to partner with someone who will be there for you and with you, shoulder to shoulder, and have solutions ready for you as we navigate these choppy waters. So that's my call to action to everyone is, let's get going. Let's hit the road, hit the ground running right away.
Awesome. So I think the call to action is a great place to move forward and to have everybody in the audience to kind of connect to Connect ID, right? Like it's a great way to think about this.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So with that, it's probably a great place to end our conversation. And I want to really just say thank you to you, Varun. It's always great talking to you. Always bring a unique perspective of what Verizon Media is doing and what you guys are doing over there. I really want to say a special thanks to Verizon Media for sponsoring this episode and allowing us to have this conversation. Also, thank you to the IAB There production team at the Interactive Advertising Bureau. Our show today was produced by Connor Healy and John Ward, and I am Orchid Richardson. So thank you for watching.